People who use cannabis at least 3 days a week are waking up with measurably higher cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, than people who do not use it at all. That finding comes from a new Oregon State University study that measured saliva samples from 82 adults, 39 frequent cannabis users and 43 non-using controls. First thing in the morning and again half an hour later. It matters because cannabis is widely marketed and personally used as a stress reliever, something people reach for specifically to calm down. Yet this data point runs in the opposite direction for the one hormone that most directly tracks the body's stress response. This story is about what the study actually measured, what it did and did not prove about cause and effect, and how much weight 82 people can honestly carry before you treat this as settled science. About your own use. Cortisol follows a daily rhythm that spikes hardest right after you wake up. A pattern researchers call the cortisol awakening response, and it exists to help mobilize energy for the day ahead through the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the hormone loop connecting your brain and adrenal glands. Researchers in this study collected saliva at 3 points, immediately upon waking, 30 minutes later, and again in the evening, across 2 separate weekdays, which let them separate 2 different things: the baseline level of cortisol present the moment you open your eyes, and the size of the spike that follows in the next half hour. The frequent cannabis users in the study showed a higher baseline cortisol reading at that very first waking sample compared to the control group. The size of the spike over the following 30 minutes. The cortisol awakening response itself did not differ significantly between the 2 groups, meaning the difference sits in the starting point, not in how sharply the hormone rises afterward. Here is the distinction that matters most. This is an observational study, meaning researchers compared 2 existing groups of people rather than randomly assigning some participants to use cannabis and others not to, which means the design cannot establish which direction the cause runs. Higher baseline cortisol could be a genuine physiological effect of frequent cannabis use on a body's stress system, or people who already run higher on baseline stress hormones could be more likely to use cannabis frequently in the first place, seeking relief from a stress response that was already elevated before they ever started. The study also cannot rule out other explanations entirely. Differences in sleep quality, alcohol use, or general life stress between the 2 groups were not fully accounted for in a sample of this size. The researchers themselves were explicit about this limitation, stating plainly that the results do not establish that cannabis use causes elevated cortisol, or the reverse, and that longer-term studies following the same people over time would be needed to sort out which comes first. 82 people is a workable sample for detecting a real statistical difference, but it is small enough that a single unusual participant in either group can meaningfully shift the average, and it leaves little room to break results down by how much cannabis someone used, what method they used it by, or how long they had been using it regularly. This single study has not yet been replicated by an independent research team. And the cortisol difference found here, while statistically real, was measured at one waking moment across 2 days, not tracked over months or years to see whether it holds steady or reflects only the earlier weeks. This is not medical guidance about whether to use cannabis. And correlational hormone data like this cannot tell you what it does for stress in your own body. Specifically, treat this as one credible data point that complicates the simple story about cannabis in relaxation, not as proof that cannabis use is harmful to your stress system. Quick recap. An 82% Oregon State study found frequent cannabis users had higher cortisol at the moment of waking than non-users, though the size of the post-waking spike did not differ. And the study cannot say whether cannabis use caused that difference or simply correlates with it. So, signal or noise? Split verdict. The measurement itself is signal. A real, statistically detected difference from a peer-reviewed research team using a validated hormone sampling method. But the popular narrative that cannabis definitively disrupts your stress hormones is noise. Because this single observational study explicitly cannot establish cause and effect. And the researchers said so themselves. The honest position is that cannabis and cortisol appear connected in a way worth studying further. Not settled in either direction. Subscribe for the health stories that separate what a study actually found from what headlines claim it proved. Signal from the noise. Every week.